Emily, welcome. I'm thrilled you can join us considering you just got off a plane from Japan.
A couple of planes, Utah actually.
Utah.
Japan and Utah, so I've done about 50 hours flying in the last 10 days.
How are you feeling?
Fine. Yeah, not long enough to get jet lag, I don't think.
So, if you look at the Blaze website, it has your bio and it says that you're a physicist turned bicyclist turned entrepreneur. That's an unusual trajectory. Tell me how that happened.
I was a girl at school that could do science and maths. I changed to sixth form to a good school, and my science and maths and the academics was far more important for the career in the city that I apparently also wanted.
Right.
So I was encouraged on the academic path when actually all I wanted to be doing is art and design, and I loved being in the DT lab. But was told I could do that in my spare time and I'd focus on the sciences. So I ended up doing physics, maths, chemistry and further maths. And I hadn't wanted to do something creative at university. I wanted to do product design or architecture, but didn't have a portfolio, had no art to show of, so left it to the last minute. My physics teacher said, why don't you do physics? I said, you've got to be joking. He said, well, why don't you do Oxbridge? Go for it. So I applied to 6 universities, 5 to read astrophysics, because I thought that'd be slightly more interesting than physics, and then Oxford to just do straight physics. And did my interviews and my exams and got my letter of acceptance and thought, shit, now I've got to go. So went and did a year of physics at Oxford, and I could do it, but it was maths. It was very high level maths. It was very intangible. It's very dry.
Is there anything about those two worlds that actually relate? It's quite funny for me because I actually just 2 weeks ago interviewed someone who specialized in physics and then became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
At one of the founders of BlaBlaCar. I mean, is there for you anything that connects those two worlds?
Definitely. Problem solving. Yeah. I mean, that's what I loved. And the part of physics that I loved was always the physical world, the physical objects, and things I can touch, feel, see. And when it got to the level of kind of intangible maths, it was something that I didn't relate to as well. But again, even in the maths, what I did enjoy was the problem solving. I think being quite analytical, I think that's part of an entrepreneur.
And how long were you at Brighton for? How long is that program?
4 years.
4 years.
But the third year was a placement year, so I spent a semester in Milan at the design school in Milan, and then on graduating was invited to go to America to do a summer entrepreneurial program at Babson, who are supposedly world leaders in entrepreneurship. And that was honestly the first time really I'd heard the word entrepreneurship.
Really?
It was never mentioned, even in Brighton, where my course was product design with professional experience, and you're designing a product from start to finish, a marketable product that could be sold potentially. It was never really mentioned that you could go and do it yourself. It's going to be new. Design a cool product and then go and work for IDEO or Seymour Powell or choose an agency. Now, to their credit, they've changed the course completely and it's very much more entrepreneurially focused.
So I was asking you how you go from being a physicist to, well, obviously not everyone rides a bike, but you obviously you cared about cycling to becoming an entrepreneur. What made you take that final leap?
So I wasn't always a cyclist. I had a bicycle at Oxford and I was on it for probably about 2 days and it was miserable. I was being overtaken by a very small child, a granny, and anything on the road moving. I thought, this is shit, this is horrible, why do people bother? And then got home and realised that both my tyres were completely empty of air. Like, this isn't for me, I gave up. And then while I was at Brighton, I decided to cycle the length of the UK for charity.
As one does.
As one does. And with a girlfriend, bought a bike and trained for 4 months and cycled 1,000 miles for a charity raising £60,000 and fell in love with it. And I've been on a bike pretty much every day since. But it's that realised the countryside was wonderful and relaxing, but the cities were damn right stressful and dangerous, and gave myself the theme urban cycling and wanted to tackle the biggest problem for city cyclists.
It is incredible because it is something that anyone, I actually used to cycle from central London near Regent's Park to Canary Wharf on a daily basis, and you sadly feel like you're taking your life in your hands at times. And of course, we just heard from Gleb that there was yet another death on the roads of London, which is incredibly sad, which brings, I think, the number to 4 just this year. And of course, this is an ongoing problem.
It's February.
I know. What gave you the faith that you could do something about this significant problem?
Understanding the problem. So I set out, first of all, I had to find the biggest problem. And I didn't really mind if it was getting wet or getting lost or your bike stolen. It had to be the biggest problem. And straight away, personal safety was just flagged as the biggest challenge from any cyclist I spoke to. And then it was spent 6 months of researching that problem. I worked with a driving psychologist who analyses accidents, which is pretty grim life, but learned a lot from him. Worked with the bus company, worked with tons of other cyclists, used a lot of IDEO, human-centered design empathy stuff. So really putting yourself in the mindset of whoever experiences the problem that you want to tackle, and all sorts of different tricks and techniques to really get to the bottom of that problem. And I was in a really luxurious position where I had 6 months to explore the problem. And in the real world, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, developing new products, you often don't have that time. So I've always, I'll say, get to the bottom of your problem, but I also realised I was really lucky to have that time. But did spend 6 months thoroughly trying to understand it and analysing the statistics of which accidents most commonly happen. And there's one stat that really stuck out, which is that 79% of cyclists that are hit are going straight ahead and somebody else turns into them. So that still shocks me today, and that covers the 2 most common. One, the blind spot that we all know about, going in the same direction and a big vehicle turns across you. And the second is that going again straight ahead and the vehicle pulls out in front of you. And I suddenly realised that in both those situations, the vehicle's in front of you. You can see them, but they can't see you. And literally was biking around town and realising, that truck just in front of me can't see me. I wish I was just 5 yards ahead. Project myself there. And as soon as I had the idea, it sounds daft, but I knew it was valuable. I knew, having done all that research, to answer your question, having done all the problem thought and empathy and trying to get to the heart of it, I suddenly realised and I'd had tons of ideas before then and worked with the whole of the second year. I managed to get the whole of the second year on my project for 2 weeks, and they ran a kind of co-creation course, so they literally worked on my problem for 2 weeks, which was great fun. I had loads of ideas, and all of them like, yeah, that's cool, yeah, sure, that might help. But then I had this idea, I was like, nah, that's actually going to make a difference. So patented it while I was at university. And
what is the patent? I mean, because obviously bike lights exist and existed before laser light. This is the device, this is the light here. You want to turn it on? And
it's really scruffy. It's my COO's, and it's got, sorry. So it's a normal bike light. You've got flash, bright and brighter. It's kind of over 500 lumen. And you can have the light on flash or on bright and the laser on constant or flash, or a combination of whatever you want.
So how far does this project?
We recommend about 20 feet, about 5 meters, which is just over half the length of a bus. So you imagine being back in the second half of a bus, it's on the ground in front of the driver.
Right. And you can have both of these lights on at the same time?
Yeah, so it's a normal bike light first and foremost, and then you have the laser as well. There's a safety feature. The laser only works in the bracket, so it's completely eye safe, but to prevent a child playing with it. My designer's got 3 kids, he's like, has to have a child lock, so it's got a child lock.
Interesting.
So it only works in its bracket.
And what was the reaction when you said that I want to design a new bike light? Because I think a lot of people, when it comes to designing, that you talk about solving problems, I think a lot of people might have thought, well, that problem's been solved, there are existing lights.
So the problem is the blind spot and being seen when you're otherwise invisible, and the answer to that is the laser. So my prototype at university is just a laser. And actually, haven't talked about this yet. I've actually been interested to hear anybody's feedback, and something we haven't spoken about publicly, but we are looking to do a new product a few, but the next one is potentially just the laser again and taking out the bike light. Because we get a lot of our criticism is about the light. Somebody wants more lumens or less lumen. Cyclists, if anyone's a cyclist, I mean, you can buy a bike light from £10 to £900, and you have various verticals in the spectrum of bike lights in the market that people would choose. And if you're picking one of them to build into a product, then somebody's going to be like, well, actually, I wanted this one. I wanted a really super expensive bike light, or no, I just wanted a crappy little LED. So you limit yourself by having all of those lights. And if people have a light that they really like, then you can just have the laser as a supplement.
How much does this cost?
125
pounds. Okay. What does £900 get you for a bike light, by the way? I mean, seriously.
An eyeball scorching headlamp that you can light up a forest with.
Oh wow, that sounds pretty good. We should probably have a look at the Kickstarter right now. So you raised your funding for the first version of this through Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Right? And produced a really great video, which we'll watch at least a part of.
Hi Kickstarter, I'm Emily, and I dreamed up Blaze. Blaze is a damn good LED front light, but it also projects the symbol of a bike down onto the road ahead. It tackles one of the biggest causes of cyclist fatalities, being caught in a blind spot, or vehicles turning across an unseen bike. It warns drivers in front of the cyclist of its presence and prevents them turning across its path. Imagine being a bus driver, with a bike down in a blind spot you can't see. Even lit up like a Christmas tree, the bike can be invisible. But with Blaze, you see its image on the road in front before you decide to turn.
I can see that green light first that tells me something's there. Then I see the cyclist. So that, when he's in my blind spot, will point him out 2 or 3 seconds before I actually see him. There's a good possibility 50% of saving his life.
Another common scenario sees drivers pulling out of a side junction into the path of a bike. Here the cyclist can be right up close, but overlooked due to its position. Blaze's flashing symbol ahead of the bike increases its visibility and gives it a presence away from its normal footprint. Finally, pedestrians. I've often had to jam on the brakes to avoid hitting someone who stepped out through stationary traffic. Be one of the first to get a Blaze on your bike and blaze a trail. Built in the UK and assembled by hand, with beautiful machined aluminium casings. The internals comprise leading optical engineering with rechargeable lithium battery, super bright white LEDs and a green laser module. The lens that disperses the laser's highly focused light to create an image also spreads its energy and makes it safe to human eyes. But like a laser pointer, it needs to be handled with care. It has a magnetic safety sensor, meaning it cannot be used off the bike, but the LEDs can still be used on low power as a torch.
You made your money pretty quickly, as I recall.
Yeah, it was
£55,000. How much were you going for?
25. Oh. I was saying earlier, just chatting to a friend, it was a month Kickstarter launched in the UK, and yes. Kickstarter, Americans weren't backing outside the dollar. They hadn't really kind of seen it be outside of America yet, and the British did not know what Kickstarter was. You can imagine my mum kind of saying, "So, darling, if I give you money, I'm not going to get equity in your company. So, you're definitely not going to get equity in my company. And I'm not going to get a product for potentially months. No. Why on earth would I give you money now? It's Kickstarter, yay!" It's not actually a very British mentality.
Did your mum actually invest in the Kickstarter?
She's actually invested in the company now.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
She's on the cap table.
Yeah. But it worked really well for you. I mean, was it part because I think you got some attention partly because you were one of the early Kickstarter projects.
Yeah.
Right?
It was great, and I thoroughly recommend it. It's your MVP as a hardware company. It's getting the simplest form of your product out there and proving demand.
Right.
So I went from being a silly little girl at university with a silly idea to actually saying, no, people will pay for this. And then it's not for fundraising, it's not for raising the capital, it's not for raising cash.
Right.
That's not what it's for. It's for proving the concept and getting feedback.
Yeah.
So having proved myself, I could then go and have conversations with investors and retailers and manufacturers and everybody else, having proved a bit of traction. I wouldn't advise you to try and fund your company on a crowdfunding campaign.
And you actually didn't go for a lot of money, so why 25? What was that?
It was, I think it was going to basically, if we had to, it could probably cover tooling.
Yeah.
And then, there's other ways of getting, we could potentially look at getting debt, raising debt for manufacturing if we needed to from a retailer.
So that was, I think the first time I met you was around that time when you'd raised that money before the product. When you look back at that, what's it been like? I mean, if you can characterize the last couple of years.
A roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's constantly from the morning to the afternoon. It's like this. It's I feel really lucky that it was my original crazy idea, and I'm still building it and growing a project. And
you seem to be doing amazingly well. I mean, you certainly get in the media a bit.
We get a lot of press. We have not paid a penny on PR or done any outreach.
Yeah.
Which I will be ever grateful for.
I work in PR now, so I'm not sure I'd advise that, but for the record. But commendable that you get attention despite not having PR. And what do you put that down to? Is it what's going on London's roads? Is it this product?
Cycle safety is a huge topic. Cycle safety is something people really care about. It is a huge problem, and people want to talk about.
Yeah.
And we are now kind of a thought leader in the process. We're doing some research called the Near Miss Project with a thought leader on cycle safety. So all of that, we know we're a good person to talk to. But also, I think we're kind of memorable. I mean, having a single female founder certainly makes you memorable.
Yeah. And how old are you now? 27?
29.
29. Oops, sorry. Getting up there. But you're also building a hardware company in a world where most people, when they talk about the tech sector, they tend to refer to software, apps, things like that. Is that something, I mean, obviously it's what you're doing, you're building, but did you ever feel like you're going against the grain? Yeah.
Hardware is hard.
Yeah.
We have all the challenges of a tech startup, and lots of my friends are building tech companies. Fundraising, growing a team, marketing, manufacturing, distributing, but we have so many more. I mean, the actual physical product. This has 109 components in it, from suppliers from, I think, kind of 15 different countries. The engineering is incredibly complex, and there's even the distribution of it, the physical distribution is far more complex than an online distribution, obviously. It's quite new. This is, typically very large companies make product for very large companies, and it's always been that way. And then now with the likes of Kickstarter, with the likes of VCs investing in tiny startups, hardware startups, it's possible to make product for many people, and good quality product.
Is it actually handcrafted in the UK?
No. It was going to be, and I would love it to be. And we are looking at future products to bring them back to the UK. What happened was we had a position where I could have delivered something sooner rather than later to the Kickstarter backers. I knew there's a technology in the laser, quite a significant difference. It's basically going to be a laser pointer diode, which is inherently sensitive to drop vibration and temperature. Not great for a bike light. Or you get access to these direct diodes, which are a lot more expensive, but amazing, and they're kind of picking up the tweezer and completely robust. But I wasn't going to have access to those for another few months because they're so expensive and the price wasn't dropping yet. And I either delivered something made in the UK, which is CNC'd, so the casing's going to be individually CNC'd by hand, which is that prototype, or shift things to China later in the year, which we will be doing anyway for the retail option, and this will be a better product. And I had no idea what to do. I either shipped late, but better, or on time-ish, made in the UK. And I just didn't know which way to turn, and so ended up, this is in the days where, Mr. Komansky, you're late. Either shipping something sooner, or literally, it's fine, we'll ask the backers.
Really?
I literally did not know what to choose, and it was myself and an intern at the time. There's just two of us, and Will's still with me now. But we sent out an email, and said, look guys, this is the situation. And I recommend any piece of advice for anybody looking to do any sort of crowdfunding, just be honest. Kill them with information. Just tell them as much as what's going on, because they're backing you to come along for the adventure. They want to be part of it. They want to feel like that they know the story and they've come along from the start. And so involve them and be as honest. If something is kind of not going to plan, and burying your head in the sand is the worst thing you can do, because then you just get bombarded.
How many people raised that money, that early money, the 55,000?
782.
What's it like to have 782 early backers?
A lot of work. But they're still a big part of the company.
Right.
So going back to that last point, the East or UK or East. So we asked, send out the email, this is what's going on, A or B. You choose, whatever you say is going to happen. Option A, sooner rather than later, UK. Option B, later, better, China. And by the end of the day, 598 people have voted. Honest to goodness, 592 said we wait. Right, fine, you voted. And then I think because of that, then a lot of my friends had Kickstarters, and the Kickstarter shipping on time is breaking news. A Kickstarter shipping late is standard, sadly, hardware optimism. But because they were involved, they're unbelievably supportive the whole way. Like, well, we knew this. We gave you, we asked for it, basically.
And how did you get supported? Because you were also part of the Entrepreneur First program as well. Yep. So how did you sort of take it from there? Because I saw you at 18 feet high and rising, which is and then I know that you are now at Runway East. So you kind of bounced around a little bit as well.
Oh, there's been about 5 in between that. We are super lean and scrappy, and I've dragged the team around. We've only just really started paying for office space.
Yeah.
And we're not really paying very much. No, we haven't. We started off in Cannon Street, and we were up 105 steps with no elevator. And my first day, I had a plank of wood across my knees and my laptop on it. And then, we moved around all over the shop.
Because in a way, Blaze and some of the other companies we've featured here kind of embody what we're trying to grow, in terms of new businesses. Like you are very ambitious. You're doing something that people want, that it seems to be a market for, but it doesn't seem easy necessarily to do. It would have been, with your education, you could have got an easier, more well-paying job. Yeah.
Do you ever? I'd be miserable.
Really?
My constant soapbox, and I piss off lots of my friends, is all my friends from Oxford are invariably in the city or in a law firm, bored out of their brains, stepping on the heels of everybody in the corporate ladder before them, doing exactly the same job as the graduate before them, with no creativity, no responsibility, working goodness long hours for a flat they never see. And they could add so much value to a small company. They not necessarily start one, because you have to be a special kind of an idiot to start one, if I'm completely honest. There has to be something that's a little bit wrong that keeps you going, that's driving you to want to start a company. Yeah. Sure, but you could add a ton of value to go and work for one. And for example, my COO, whose light I have stolen, is awesome. And I was looking for growing up. I wanted somebody who'd been a big part of a small company that I could learn from. Mm-hmm. Somebody who'd done this before, somebody, who'd at least had a job. I'd never had one. Yeah. And had some amazing applicants, a guy that had built and sold 8 companies and been a professional cyclist, but ended up hiring somebody really young, 2 years younger than me, who is a consultant, stolen from the city. He was at Deloitte, operations consultant, doing really well, flying around the world. And he's just super bright, super good, super brilliant at everything I'm crap at, which is all the logistics and attention to detail and legal and finance and everything. Mm-hmm. And he's basically running my company. Like he makes decisions that impact the everyday strategy of the company. And he loves it. And he could have been, and so now his friends have watched him, his mates from Deloitte, actually literally in the same role as he was a few months ago, have watched him on this adventure and be like, actually, I want to go and do that. And they've left, and we've put them into some friend startups.
So what is the big play then. The poster for this talk says that you're building a hardware empire, so no pressure. But famously, the world's most valuable company, Apple, was founded in a garage, and so things can come from something very small to very big. Do you have something else in mind?
Yeah.
Can you share it?
Bits of it. So there's two parts of it. There's one is the bike brand, which I'm furiously building, Blaze, and that we're developing future products for urban cyclists. There are so many challenges for city cyclists. Anybody who's been on a bike in an urban space knows that. So there's plenty of problems to be solving, and we're looking at all sorts of innovative ways to do that, integrating new tech. Also working with some other big groups of bicycle to integrate.
What can she say?
I'm trying to figure out what I can say. Yeah, so there's the bike company Blaze, but there's also applications for the technology in other industries,
Right.
Which are huge and probably worth far more than the bike brand I'm fiercely building.
Have you thought about making an electric car? Because everyone's doing it now. Because I'd buy one. I'd potentially.
With you. Please go. I had a meet. I was asked to go up to Liverpool to meet the Prime Minister to show him Blaze at one point, as you do. And this is going to sound like a really.
He just lives in London, You
I know. I could have gone down the road.
There.
They're doing like an expo of British design and manufacturing stuff. And the other company they'd asked to go meet him was Formula E. So the guys doing the electric Formula 1 race cars. Mm-hmm. So I rock up, and I'm me, little Emily, with the laser light. And there's this group of 3 guys with a full-on, life-size, working electric race car. And I was like, okay, great, thanks. But the Prime Minister cycles, so he loved Blaze, and he came and chatted to me, and I got all their time, so it's fine. But the guys, at the end of it, I was late, I had to come back to London, and I had to rush off to get the train, and the guys were like, well, we'll give you a lift. I was like, oh, cool, electric car, awesome. I was like, no, we're flying. And flew me back to London in a helicopter because they had to fly on to Vegas. I was like, sure. My team were convinced I was going to be late again for the meeting, which I was going to be late for anyway, and I kind of managed to send a text saying, don't worry, I'm not going to be late. I'm in a helicopter. What? Anyway, but electric cars, that is one of the applications because electric cars travel very slowly and they're quiet when they do, and pedestrians step out in front of them the whole time. So we're looking to integrate, and we've filed some IP around it, lasers into the front of electric vehicles.
So what is your product then? Sounds like it's your imagination. Sounds like that's the thing that's going to carry you, no matter what it is you do.
I mean, to an extent, yes. In that my imagination brought this laser projecting idea, and there is plenty of applications for that, and we can take that anywhere we want. So, and there's obviously the risk of focusing and spreading us. We are tiny. We were a tiny team around the corner of the 6 of us. We're really young. We've got no clue what we're doing. We're figuring it out as we go. And we obviously can't do everything that we want to be doing. Mm-hmm. So focus is very important.
One last thing I want to ask you before we go to questions from the audience is about local entrepreneurs, because we hear a lot about the tech scene, but that sounds impenetrable. You talking about the tech scene. What is it like on the inside? You belong to the International Conclave of Entrepreneurs, or ICE.
Yep.
And which is a group of entrepreneurs who kind of get together to support each other, have a list, and occasionally go on trips. Is there a camaraderie, and how much does that matter when you're doing what you're doing?
Hugely, and yes. ICE, for example, is a really collaborative community. It's really supportive. There's a few of them. There's Summit. I've just come back. So the second half of the trip was Utah on Powder Mountain with a bunch of entrepreneurs. And that's a very different setup from ICE. ICE is London-based mainly, but very supportive. Mm-hmm. The email chain, for example, you stick your hand up and you ask a question, and there's 180 people on it, and most of them will have gone through. We've all got the same challenges, raising capital, growing a team, firing people, or things you have never done before or ever imagined doing before. Somebody in that list has done it, and it's a family. It's a really collaborative family, and the friendships you make on trips are very important because it's a special environment away from the office, away from performance mode of everything's flying in front of your team, in front of investors, in front of everybody you're dealing with, and fellow founders. We've all got the same headspace. We're all slightly nutty.
But when you contrast that, or when you compare it to the support from the UK government, is it what's more important?
Peers, founders, fellow founders and fellow friends. But UKTI have been great. You hear different things. People either love them or hate them, but UKTI for me have been absolutely fantastic. And as long as you stick your hand up and ask for something and know what you want, they have been really supportive.
Thanks to Emily Brooke.